after I left Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Now that's a beautiful church. They have the one in Evanston, Illinois. They have 2 services and they both have over 500 people in them.
Oh,
Never seen that church. The one in Bloomington was a Frank Lloyd Wright building.
So is this one.
mhm.
He makes beautiful buildings. My grandson is 6. So I decided to stay home and be on Zoom today.
Oh, who said that?
Is your grandson interested in listening to some of the service?
Well, if I can wake him up. He's supposed to be in his class right now.
Oh, well, we got that time change today.
That's right. I did it before I went to sleep, so I wouldn't forget.
I did too, and I regretted that I stayed up late, and then it was even later when I went to bed.
Last week I wanted to watch Saturday Night Live, but it wound up watching me. And this week I stayed up and watched it and then lost another hour. That's okay.
Oh, so is this service moving along and we're not hearing it maybe?
No,
They're still getting organized?
I think so.
You can hear.
And I guess it's live streamed on YouTube too, is another way to watch.
Right. We should be hearing something. Let me see if I can get somebody on here.
We are not hearing anything from the slideshow, which apparently is now playing.
Yes.
But we fully understand when you're trying to stream services, what happens and what could
I
happen.
know.
Yep, been there, done that.
Yeah, it looks like Michelle's speaking too, from Erie.
The mic is not working. Well, this would happen when we have all you visitors here.
Yeah.
I'll send them a note. Maybe they'll see it. Can you hear anything, Nita?
Yes, I can hear you.
But you can't hear the service.
We cannot hear the service.
It's muted. The first UU Indiana is muted.
Ah,
the visitors bar. You can find one in your hymnal or in the entryway. This will help us make sure you're receiving information about our church's programs and services. If you're joining us online, send an email office@firstu-indiana.org to become connected to our newsletter. On Zoom, please note the chat button below the video screen and use that feature for our readings, chalice lighting, and for joys and concerns during the service. The First Unitarian Universalist Church of Indiana, PA, is a member congregation of the Unitarian Universalist Association. We are a self-governing congregation united in a web of mutuality that creates our denomination. We have no creed or doctrine, teaching that all individuals have the right and responsibility to discern and follow their own spiritual paths. We come together to support and assist each other on our journeys and to build our beloved community together. I invite you to stay after the service to greet one another and to rejoice in our mutual presence. Microphones on Zoom for coffee hour, and those in person are welcome to greet those joining us electronically at that time. Special announcements. Continue to make progress on our fan system for the church.
Good morning. Good morning.
$2 for every dollar pledge.
Good. Okay.
Eric Carter to make a pledge. We have inquiries about adult education and adult version of the Teen Bible class. So I want all adults to sign up for the sessions on Tuesday nights, March 22nd, April 5th, and April 12th. We'll offer this class on Zoom to make it accessible to those kids or kids around the time. There will be finger points, and you don't want to miss it. So I'll write for every word of it. Also, check out and share our campaign on Facebook Bible Speak. We're $3,500 by just for you. So for the new use for our life, community members who appreciate our values, and anyone who can think of, we support liberal religious faith. Our values, and not actually has the rest of this story that I did not forget. That's a big problem. No. I get printed and there we go. Good morning. I am Nora Randall, President of the Board of Trustees. A few weeks ago, I told you all that the Board of Trustees was attempting to join forces with the Community Fellowship of Linear Valley to employ ministry full time. Sadly, the two entities decided that it was in the best interest of both to separate and search for ministers on their own. We parted friends and look forward to future contact between the two congregations. Now, your search team again has the task of attracting prospective ministers to a position that is less than full time, not. The board needed to act quickly to support the search team in this endeavor in time for round 2 of the search process. The board arrived at the following plan to make the settled minister position more enticing. The position will be offered on a starting level of 80% of full-time rather than 75%, with the promise of growth in 5% increments annually until reaching full-time. Some of you may remember that this was the method of bringing Reverend Joan to full-time status. Quite well at the time. The immediate concern of affording the increase from 75% to 80% is to stage a Faithify campaign, which I hope you read about in your weekly newsletter. Faithify is, in my concept, the UUA version of GoFundMe. One caveat about Faithify: we must reach our $3,500 goal in order to claim the proceeds. Anything short of that will go back to the donors. Affording the annual increases in coming years will need to be covered with other resources. At this time, we cannot yet suggest to the congregation to use the proceeds from sale of the Bonnet House, because selling it in less than 3 years from the date of donation would cause the donors some steep tax repercussions. That is why we have launched the Faithify campaign to get us through this year until we will be free to sell the Bonnet House. I hope you will please support this fundraiser to help draw prospective ministers to this opening. You can find the link to Faithify in your weekly newsletter email. Should you have more questions about this matter, please email me or speak with me after the worship service. I thank you for your time. Blessed be.
I'm the call to worship. So I now invite you to take a breath and settle yourself into a spirit of worship. Often, people say that they love coming to a place with so many like-minded people. I know just what they're getting at, and I know that they aren't getting it quite right. I don't want to be with a bunch of people who think just like me. I want to be in a beloved community where I don't have to think like everyone else to be loved, to be eligible for salvation. I want to be with people who value compassion, justice, love, and truth, though they have different thoughts and opinions about all sorts of things. I want to be with independent-minded people of good heart. I want to be with people who have many names and no name at all for God. I want to be with people who see me and see in me goodness and dignity, who also see my failings and foibles and who still love me. I want to be with people who feel their interconnection with all existence and let it guide their footfalls upon the earth. I want to be with people who see life as a paradox and don't always rush to resolve it. I want to be with people who are willing to walk the tightrope that is life and who will hold my hand as I walk mine. I want to be with people who let church call them into a different way of being in the world. I want to be with people who support and encourage and even challenge each other to a higher and more ethical living. I want to be with people who inspire one another to follow the call of Spirit. I want to be with people who covenant to be honest, engaged, and kind, who strive to keep their promises and hold me to the promises I make. I want to be with people who give of themselves, who share their hearts and minds and gifts. I want to be with people who know that human community is often warm and generous, sometimes challenging, and almost always a grand adventure. In short, I want to be with people like you. So come, let us worship together.
Now let us light our chalice flame. On Zoom, you may type "the flame is lit" and name where you are joining us from in the chat bar. This is a holy place in which we gather, touched then by our answering light, the flame of a chalice, the flicker of a candle, the lamps of our open faces brought near.
Penny.
Hey, we don't
Oh,
need to see
sorry.
him.
Yes.
Okay, wait a minute.
Sorry.
Which is which?
I'm ahead of you.
That's okay.
It's one of
Please
those
stand
days.
and as you are able to in body and spirit, and join us in singing hymn number 1024, When the Spirit Says Do.
You got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Oh, you got to do when the Spirit says do. 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 You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. When the Spirit says sing, you got to sing. You got to sing when the Spirit says sing. 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 You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. You got to dance when the Spirit says dance. When the Spirit says dance, you got to dance. Oh Lord, you got to dance when the Spirit says dance. 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 You got to shout when the Spirit says shout. You got to shout when the Spirit says shout. When the Spirit says shout, you got to shout. Oh Lord, you got to shout when the Spirit says shout. 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 You got to do when the Spirit says do. You got to do when the Spirit says do. When the Spirit says do, you got to do. Lord, you got to do when the Spirit says do. Spirit says you. 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 Spirit says you.
Or have a chair.
Good morning. As you can tell, it's the junior high musical this weekend. That's why many are not here. So, okay, I would like you all to take a moment and close your eyes. Take a deep breath. I want you to think back, pull from your memory a time that you were moved by nature. Maybe it was a great waterfall that you stood at the foot of, or maybe just the sun hitting the sprinkler water in just the right way that it caught your eye, and you took in the beauty of the sun in each drop. Maybe it was a rainbow you saw in the sky after a storm, or the rising of the sun on an early morning. Maybe it was a crocus flower poking out of the snow, or a cardinal you saw outside your window. Maybe it was a sunset you caught by accident. Take a minute. Try to be in that memory. Try to feel in this moment how you felt at that time. What was it in that moment that was different than others? What gave you pause? Was it beauty, wonder, solace? Would you describe it as divine? Open your eyes. Today, Reverend Elizabeth will be talking about imagining God. We as Unitarian Universalists may or may not believe in a God, but something we collectively understand is the wonder of it all, especially in nature. Divine can be defined as excellent and delightful, but also of, from, or like God or a God. That moment you imagined earlier could be described as you witnessing the divine. That memory you pulled up, you filed it away in your brain because it must have given you pause. Often those moments are happenstance. I challenge you to seek out these moments. Maybe even today, when you step outside in this frigid day, take a deep breath. Look closely. Take in what you see, hear, feel, and be in communion with the divine.
We now invite you to pass the sign of peace with one another, and especially to anyone you haven't met before or haven't seen recently. Saying peace be with you, namaste, or similar blessing.
And today we are a cappella for our children's exit. So let's just wave them a goodbye. Our centering words come from Elizabeth Tarbox.
And so I say ours is a story of faith and hope and love. I say it is our need for one another that binds us together, that brings us laughing and limping into relationships. and keeps us at it when we otherwise might despair at the fix we are in. I say it is holy, and we need the eternal beyond our comprehension. And one place we can find it is here, working and worshiping together. And I say there is a transcendence value worthy of our loyalty, upon which we may set our hearts. It is a divine manifestation of love. During our centering music, if you have joys or sorrows you would like spoken aloud, please write them in the chat line online or in a note card and place it in the basket in the sanctuary to be woven into our shared pastoral prayer.
Has anyone ever asked you, so what do you use believe? No one? Anyone? Oh, yeah. So what do you tell them? We all just look at them like deer in the headlights. Yeah, it depends who's asking. Sometimes it's easier than others. That story sometimes needs to shift. But we do, in fact, have theologies. As much as we say we have no creed, we have no doctrine, we're not a believe anything you want religion. I think you all know that. Even if it's hard to sum up as like your 10-word, what you use, say, or do. But historically, and I think even to the present day, one of the ways that I tend to sum it up is as much as we have theological diversity, as much as we have people coming from different places and using different scriptures, at some and at core, historical Unitarian Universalism says we all come from one source and we all go to the same place. We are made in love and we return to all that is. And we might use a lot of different names for that. But if we have a secret creed somewhere deep underneath our principles, It goes something perhaps like this. We believe in the power of people to create heaven or hell on this earth. And we believe that we are accountable to humanity and to creation for whichever we choose. Therefore, as Unitarian Universalists, we choose the intentional creation of communities where love can grow. Maybe we do have something we believe in. And now, let us speak together, not a creed, but a covenant that we share in, the covenant of our UU, Unitarian Universalist Association. You'll find it in your order of service, or if you're online, it will be on screen. We covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person, justice, equity, and creation, human relation, acceptance of one another, and encouragement to spiritual growth in our congregations, a free and responsible search for truth and meaning, the right of conscience, and the use of the democratic process within our congregations and in society at large. The goal of world community with peace, liberty, and justice for all, and respect for the interdependent web of all existence, of which we are a part.
We offer a time of silence during which you are invited to come forward to light a candle of intention or to represent a joy or sorrow, concern or celebration in your life. If you have not already done so, you may hand your written joy or sorrow to Reverend Elizabeth as you light your candle.
So now, let us join hearts and minds together in a spirit of prayer. Blessed Spirit of life, Spirit of love, Spirit of all creation, we are gathered here today, sharing in community the milestones of our living. Be with us in all that is, in our deep grief and sorrow for the Ukrainian people, in concern for the world's moral quandary in this difficult time. Be with us in gratitude, even as Glenn Sims continues to work with his heart condition. He is filled with good humor and a positive attitude. We send healing thoughts. We send deep love to Glenn and to Pauline in her caring and to their whole family. We send healing and light to all those who are struggling. We offer thanks and gladness for all the middle schoolers of our congregation whose play is happening this weekend and who are at that joyous ending point of a lot of hard work and practice. We send deep appreciation right to the back of the room where our tech hosts are persevering despite an amazing number of gremlins today that took out a webcam and a microphone. We send all the energy of hope and healing for that microphone and webcam, which we hope will be back online by next week. And love and gladness for all those who are part of our community, who made it an hour earlier with daylight savings time. And to all those for whom the combination of snow and daylight savings means they joined us online or will be watching us on YouTube a little later to make that adjustment. And such gratitude to Jeffrey Bowden and the art and aesthetics team and the Indiana art folks for the beauty in our sanctuary. We've had new art hung and it fills me with joy and gladness. So for the ever-changing seasons, though perhaps not changing as swiftly as some of us might hope, as we've got one more big snowfall, for the blessings of our lives, we hold gratitude for all that is difficult, all that burdens our hearts. May we find comfort, healing, and support here in this community and in the wider world. And may our tender hearts find caring. May we be at peace. Blessed be, and amen.
At the First Unitarian Church of Indiana, PA, we share the Pass the Plate by giving a portion of every week's donation to an organization outside of the church. This is part of our congregation's mission to promote, I could do it without, can't, sorry, to promote compassionate and responsible thought and action in so I'll get it together. In the world by giving back to the community around us every week. So when you give this morning, know that you are making an impact not only for this congregation, but also for the community, the wider community, through our shared giving. Our congregation is giving this month's benefits to the Care Center of Indiana County, which originally began providing services in the 1970s in Indiana under the name Parents Anonymous. From the start, they have been a child abuse prevention agency with advocacy, parent support, and education at the forefront of their work. Today, CARE stands for the name Child Advocacy and Relationship Enhancing, and it symbolizes the care for the child, the parents, and the needs of the family. The child is always the center of all their services as the Care Center staff work to enhance relationships between parents and children. As a congregation who has said our greatest justice work is the nurturing of children into compassionate and responsible adults, we are glad to give both within and beyond our walls, supporting families as we build a better world. Please give generously as you are able to the work of the church as we share singing our offertory hymn. Number 402.
From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live. From you I receive, to you I give. Together we share, and by this we live.
In gratitude for the work of this church, we receive the morning offering. So today, we ponder our theological diversity. Who are we together when we are not a people who believe alike? And further than that, what is the actual benefit of encouraging theological diversity in a congregation? Because we don't just tolerate or allow theological difference. It's something we encourage, feel enriched by. Well, for one thing, it is because we wish to know that every person is part of the greater love of the divine, of all humanity, of this world. And being human means having individual thoughts, individual differences, But this is something that's been going on for centuries, eons. Now, even here in Unitarian Universalism, this has been a space where we have widened the circle, made more space over the years. Way back in 1830 something. This one I didn't write down in the sermon notes. But when Theodore Parker, who we talked about just last week, was speaking and preaching and writing, there were differences because Theodore Parker was an abolitionist, but also because his theology was just a little wider than a lot of Unitarians felt comfortable with. Theodore Parker invited people of color to be a part of his congregation. Theodore Parker, furthermore, invited the poor, invited people of different social classes to sit together, rented out auditoriums because his sermons were so popular that he had as many as 3,000 people from all walks of life in Boston coming to hear his sermons on a Sunday. And he preached that there was love enough for all of those people, that there was a God who would see all of those people and care for them and find compassion and love enough for every one of them. And he believed it enough that he wrote his sermons at his desk in his church, a desk in which he kept a pistol as well, because he vowed that as an agent of God's love, he would not allow any member of his congregation to be taken by slave catchers. And he felt strongly about it and about the anti-fugitive laws. And when the Unitarian ministers of the time asked him kindly to resign his fellowship, he said, "If you would like to remove me from the rolls of fellowship, I cannot stop you." And then they didn't, and he continued on. This is our theological legacy, one that includes more love. We jump forward over 100 years, and in the 1970s and early 1980s, women of this denomination said, "Excuse me, could we get a hymnal rewrite?" And maybe, just maybe, some of those instances of talking about God wouldn't say he and him and assume that the divine is a purely masculine creation and creator. And so we have our great hymnal, imperfect, but including words like the hymn "Bring Many Names," with an old Father God still young enough to grow, with a strong Mother God who is a protector and fierce. We have a hymnal that knows that the divine includes women and men and non-binary people. Less good about the non-binary people, it was still the 80s. The Teal hymnal does even better at that, imperfect. But once again, widening the circle of who is included when we say God, when we say the divine. As I was writing this, I remembered back. My friend Ninan tells a story sometimes about a little girl who Ninan met when they belonged to a church long ago, before Ninan, the Reverend Soto, ever became a minister. That little girl was so utterly convinced that she could not become a minister. She couldn't because she'd been to ordination ceremonies, and she knew that the laying on of hands and the right hand of fellowship were important and essential parts of that ceremony. She knew, she'd seen it. She'd been born without a right hand. And so she thought she could not participate, could not be a minister, a carrier of divine presence. Because obviously, if those were the things you needed in order to be blessed and to be part of the fellowship of ministers, then she wasn't and would never be. Trust me, she has been disabused of that notion. But it speaks to how powerful our wording can be. By contrast, I remember a story from the 1890s in Wyoming. So the Iowa Sisterhood, the prophetic sisterhood of women ministers, existed from about the 1850s to the 1890s on, though it's Iowa, the westernmost reaches of where Unitarians were spreading themselves and their churches out so far that no man would want a church out there. There were women preaching, teaching, and mentoring. There were generations of women taking on a secretary or an assistant as a junior minister and then sending them farther west, or leaving them in a church already planted to go and plant the next church. Until, so the story goes, there in Wyoming, in a little church on the prairie with clapboard siding and a house-like look, a man got up to preach. And a little girl, seated about midway back in a pew, gasped and loudly said, "Mommy, why is there a man in the pulpit?" It matters who our exemplars are, who we have seen encountering the divine and being a part of all of our sacred work. When we see images of the divine in so many ways, when we hear stories of the divine through many paths, we find new lights, new windows into the soul. We find new points of connection, new insights through one another's eyes upon the holy, and the different ways we describe our encounters. The ancients understood this as well. There's the story of Horus, chopped into pieces and reassembled and missing parts, saying that disfigurement, difference, disability does not make you less a god, a part of the sacred. There's Loki, who shows us transformation, adoption, becoming belonging, shows to us so many ways of being, that gender can change, that we are still part of the holy. There's a Buddhist path that teaches us patience, balance, can help us let go, help people through grief and transitions. There are the stories of the Bible, which in some provide an image of a God who is creative, who is powerful, and also who learns to parent better as the story progresses, who starts out in punishment and becomes more able to reason, to offer grace. It's a story of the development of a people, and it's a story of how the divine develops with them over thousands of years. There are spiritual practices brought forth from the Torah, the Quran, that remind us to notice our values every day, something that Unitarian Universalists sometimes wish were more of a practice for themselves. And then we have our scientific folks, our religious humanists, our atheists, who remind us that miracles are everywhere, that the ordinary and the sacred and the special and the wonder-filled are not distinct realms of difference. And our humanists remind us to trust in ourselves and in each other. Remind us that we are the authors of our story, that together people can make magic happen. In this room and beyond these walls, there are Unitarian Universalists bringing flavors of divinity, different ways of noticing the sacred, different paths for their lives and for their communities. And all of this makes us greater than we might otherwise be. All of this gives us access to more ways of loving, more ways of explaining the divine, more wonder to reconnect with. Because the most important piece of that creating and envisioning of the divine for each of ourselves is to bring us closer to one another, to shape our values and reaffirm them, to remind us where we find one more way of life being worthy, of people worth being responsible for, where we find co-creation through conversations. This is the power of our church. These are the conversations we hope to create. So in this community and beyond, in this month where we emphasize renewing faith, let me invite you, every one of you, to think about what is sacred and special and wondrous that you believe. What is worthy of sharing? And then have a conversation with someone where you go to that deep place and you say, where do you find love and wonder? What roots your values? Tell them what you believe and see what they say as well. And thereby, I hope you may find yet another window upon what is miraculous and wonderful in this life. Blessed be.
Our closing words come from A. Powell Davies. None of our private worlds is big enough for us to live a wholesome life in. We need the wider world of joy and wonder, of purpose and venture, of toil and tears. What are we, any of us, but strangers and sojourners, forlornly meandering through the night until we draw together and find the meaning of our lives in one another, dissolving our fears in each other's courage, making music together, and lighting torches to guide us through the dark. We belong together. Love is what we need to love and to be loved. Let our hearts be open, and what we would receive from others, let us give. For what is given still remains to bless the giver when the gift is love. Please join us in our closing hymn, Olam Chesed Giovanni, which is from Rabbi Menachem Predator. Menachem, okay, Predator, the writer and singer of this song. He says, I wrote this song for my daughter, born right after 9/11. This world will be built by love, ours and God's, and the best and worst of moments, non-fundamentalist believers and atheists are reaching for the same. Hope using different language. Amen to both. So let us sing this song. You get to call and repeat.
So this song is Olam Chesed Ivane. And that's pretty much the first half of the song, is a repeat, Olam Chesed Ivane. And then the second half is the English translation. The lyrics are in your order of service. I will build this world from love. You must build this world from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world with love. And I'm going to, rather than teaching you and then having you worry about whether you're singing it right, I'm going to ask that you hum or sing along as a prayer. And just let it be good enough.
Oh,
this world from love. And if we build this world from love, then God will build this world from love.
I invite you to join me in saying together our words to extinguish the chalice. We extinguish our chalice flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again.
And as we go forth, may we remember words from Ram Dass, which say, "To those who came here seeking the holy, may the holy go with you and in you. To those who came here seeking comfort, may life return your warm embrace. And to those who came here seeking a way forward, may you find that path and the courage to move along it step by step. Blessed be, and amen."
Yeah.